Yeah. So let's go to Vietnam. So you volunteered for Vietnam in what, 1966?
Yes.
Or 65?
66.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they automatically say, okay, well, you're a lieutenant colonel, that means you're gonna take over a squadron or a battalion?
I wish that was the case. in fact, they give the Army more credit than it's due. No, they, along with everybody else, I was a lieutenant colonel. I arrived in country, and I was assigned initially to be the executive officer of the Combat Operations Center of MACV, which is the headquarters of all. And the Combat Operations Center was Westmoreland's Operations Center.
Right.
And it was run by a Marine Brigadier General, Bill Jones by name. And was a great man. I mean, and I was his exec. And we, quote, ran the war, so to speak. The word "we" is a very loose term. From the COC, and that was headquarters right there in Saigon, and it was a cushy job. I mean, went to work on a regular hourly basis. I used to go in at night once in a while because President Johnson was going to talk to some of the action officers, trying to find out what was happening to these patrols that we were sending out.
Wow,
I mean,
that's a serious sign of micromanagement, huh?
Oh, let me tell you, that was micromanagement of the first order, and I saw it, absolutely saw it, in happening more often than I care to remember. But I had one of the evenings, I met one of my former colleagues, Armour, who was commanding the 1st to 4th Cavalry of the 1st Infantry Division, and he told me he was going to rotate home in December. I said, can I get that job? He said he'd take me up and introduce me to General Depew, who was the division commander. And I went up and I passed the test. You'd have to know General Depew, and he was a no-nonsense guy. He would. People thought I was crazy because General Depew was relieving battalion commanders for incompetence, right and left. And I figured, if you go up and do your job, you're going to be okay. So I went up, and General Depew interviewed me, and General Hollingsworth did. He was the assistant division commander. And Hollingsworth was an old cavalryman. I mean, and he couldn't. The two of them passed on me, said it was okay, and so I got reassigned to command of the 1st to the 4th Cavalry in December of 1966, which was a plum job. It was not only a plum outfit, but General Depew used the cavalry squadron like it should be used. Many times later, my successors were all not as lucky as I was. I mean, I was able to fight my unit as a unit. I had 3 ground troops, 1 D troop was a helicopter troop. I had 31 helicopters in it, and I had, the division commander would assign B company of the tank battalion that was assigned to my unit, and then since there wasn't any real enemy aircraft, he assigned several of the batteries of the anti-aircraft unit to my unit. So I had a unit that unparalleled in history, because General Depew believed the cavalry was supposed to go find the enemy and then keep him there until his infantry could show up. And we did it more often than not. And one of the stories I tell people, I'm self-styled king of the Michelin rubber plantation, which is, 70 square miles of trees. And historically, there's little communities of workers throughout this place. And these little towns became havens for the North Vietnamese. And so we took it upon ourselves to evacuate everybody out of the little villages to the perimeter of the plantation, and then took it upon ourselves to destroy the villages, because the North Vietnamese were coming in at night, using these places and shelling our units. So we were destroying all these little hamlets. In fact, I had an engineer company assigned to me, and one of the contests was between the captain, who was the engineer company commander, and myself. I'd be up on my chopper, and he'd be down on the ground, and he was going to implode these villages. Now, if he imploded them all, he won. If any of the villages' buildings would still be standing, I won. Now, what did we win? A beer. And more often than not, I won. He didn't win them. He didn't lose many, but we got. So, in the spring of 1967, Ambassador Ellsworth Bunker arrives in Vietnam. The first unit he wants to visit is mine. Everybody is, what in the world why did he pick this, and why is he coming to see you? Well, he gets out there, and he's got a 4-star general, a 3-star general, and then division commander, all with him. And we're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm briefing the ambassador. I get emotional when I say this. He says, "Colonel, I got more correspondence on my desk from the French about what in the hell you're doing up here, destroying their village and all the people and causing all this commotion. What are you doing, and why are you doing it?" And I explained to him that why we were doing it, because these villages were being havens for the North, and they were coming in and killing our troops. And I'll always remember him saying, "Colonel, you just keep doing what you're doing, and I'll take care of the French." And I said, "God bless you." I mean, I still get emotional. But that man, that gentleman, understood what the hell was going on. And here we talk about State Department people not knowing what's going on. He knew what was going on, and he told me to keep doing what I was doing, and I did it. But I will always remember him. I think at the time, I'm not sure of this, he was either the oldest or next oldest ambassador we ever had in the State Department, but he was out there trapping around in the boonies with me. And it was a rare experience. But anyway, it was one of those days, when you really think you counted. Yeah.
Indeed.
And he was, to me, that's leadership too. He knew what the hell was going on, and he was able to tell me to keep doing what I was supposed to be doing. Yeah, he was a great man.
So those operations, was that the primary type of operation that you'd be doing, is going into areas and basically disrupting what the enemy was up to?
Basically, the mission was search and destroy. And what we did was try to find the enemy, and then destroy him. So, in the Michelin plantation, we thought the enemy was not there. But we spent, there was something called the Iron Triangle north of Saigon. It's about 30 miles north of Saigon, which was our operational area. And it was traditionally a haven for the North, and or the whoever. Anyway, the guys that were shooting at us, and you never know whether they're North Vietnamese or they're conscripted South Vietnamese, but they all look the same to me, and they still do. I've never. In Korea, I couldn't tell the difference between a North Korean and a South Korean. I still couldn't never tell the difference between a South Vietnamese and a North Vietnamese. Maybe there's a way, but I never figured it out. And so we just went in and constantly were searching and destroying. And if we find the enemy in strength, our job was to hold him there until General DePuy could get his infantry into helicopters and bring them in and really defeat the enemy. On occasion, we got in more of a firefight than we expected to be, but we generally were pretty good at finding them, and the tanks would roll right through this forest and knock the trees right down, and it was no problem at all. And I was in my helicopter directing, and you could see and you tell the tanks where to go, and the tanks and the ACAS, which were primarily what the unit was all about. And so that was our job. Yeah.
So often I read about units that were over there that never, or very, very seldom would they see the enemy. They would lose guys to sniper fire, they'd lose guys to mortar fire, they'd lose guys to booby traps, but very seldom would they see the enemy. And, obviously there's units that are different than that, but it sounded like you were able to find the enemy on a fairly regular basis.
Oh yes, or they found us. Who finds who is not sure. There's an answer to that, but yes. We more often than not we had contact. I had more than I would like to admit casualties, which didn't happen because they couldn't find the enemy. I can tell you they could find us, and I often remember somebody a long time in my career tell me something about reconnaissance by fire. And I remember with a tank you had a lot of machine guns and you could do a lot of reconnaissance by fire. And the trouble with reconnaissance by fire is you never know whether they see you or not. You just know there's somebody shooting at you. Well, that's good enough. That's good enough. You don't need any know whether he's aiming at you or not.